The Syrian Civil War, a conflict that has come to define a generation, did not erupt overnight. Its roots run deep, entwined with decades of authoritarian rule, economic disparity, and social unrest. In 2011, Syria, like many of its neighbors, was swept by a wave of popular uprisings that came to be known as the Arab Spring. Syrians, yearning for freedom and democratic reforms, took to the streets demanding political change. However, what began as peaceful demonstrations were met with brutal repression by the government of Bashar al-Assad, inheritor of a regime built on control and suppression. The Assad regime, dominated by the Alawite sect, a minority within Syria's predominantly Sunni population, responded with overwhelming force, using its security apparatus to quell dissent. This heavy-handed approach, rather than silencing the protesters, ignited a firestorm of anger and resentment, pushing the country toward the precipice of a brutal civil war. The Syrian conflict, from its inception, was never a simple binary of pro- or anti-Assad sentiment. The uprising drew in a diverse tapestry of Syrians, united by their desire for change but divided by ideology, ethnicity, and religion. This inherent complexity would become a defining characteristic of the war, shaping its trajectory and hindering attempts at a lasting peace. As the Syrian government escalated its crackdown on peaceful protesters, the opposition, initially united in its call for reform, began to fragment. Armed groups, composed of army defectors and civilians taking up arms, emerged to protect their communities and challenge the regime's authority. The Free Syrian Army, a loose coalition of defectors from the Syrian Arab Army, emerged as the first major armed opposition group. The Free Syrian Army, initially seen as a symbol of the armed rebellion, struggled to maintain unity and cohesion within its ranks. As the conflict escalated, the lines between peaceful protest and armed struggle blurred. Syria descended into a chaotic civil war, with control over territory constantly shifting. The Assad regime, relying on its air power and brutal siege tactics, fought ruthlessly to maintain its grip on power. The conflict took a devastating toll on Syria's civilian population. Cities and towns, once vibrant centers of life, were reduced to rubble. Millions were displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries or within Syria's increasingly fractured borders. The Syrian Civil War, with its power vacuum and escalating violence, created a fertile breeding ground for extremism. In the chaos, a new and terrifying force emerged, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Born from the remnants of al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIS exploited the chaos of war to seize territory and establish its self-proclaimed caliphate. Brutal and unforgiving, ISIS imposed its extremist ideology through terror, targeting religious minorities, conducting public executions, and destroying cultural heritage sites. The group's rise marked a dangerous turning point in the conflict, transforming the Syrian Civil War from a struggle for political change into a battle against a transnational terrorist organization. The international community, alarmed by ISIS's rapid expansion and brutal tactics, was forced to confront this new threat. A US-led coalition launched airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq, while regional and international actors grappled with how to contain the group's growing influence. The rise of ISIS added another layer of complexity to the Syrian conflict, further fracturing the opposition and drawing international actors deeper into the quagmire of war. The fight against ISIS, while necessary, had the unintended consequence of diverting resources and attention from the ongoing struggle against the Assad regime. The Syrian Civil War, already a devastating conflict, took on an even more complicated dimension as international actors entered the fray. Regional powers like Iran and Saudi Arabia, as well as global superpowers such as the United States and Russia, each pursued their own strategic interests, turning Syria into a battleground for proxy wars. Iran, supporting the Assad regime, provided military aid and fighters, while Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed militant group, played a crucial role in bolstering Assad's forces. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states funneled support to various rebel factions, aiming to counter Iranian influence in the region. The United States, initially cautious, became more involved, supporting certain rebel groups and conducting airstrikes against ISIS. Meanwhile, Russia's intervention in 2015, with airstrikes and military advisors, significantly tilted the balance in favor of Assad. These interventions, driven by geopolitical interests, further complicated the conflict, making a resolution even more elusive. The involvement of international actors not only prolonged the war but also increased its brutality as advanced weaponry and tactics were employed on all sides. The Syrian people, caught in the crossfire of these proxy battles, continued to suffer the most. The international community's inability to find a unified approach to the crisis further exacerbated the human tragedy unfolding in Syria. In the northern regions of Syria, a unique story of autonomy and resistance unfolds. Here, local communities have taken matters into their own hands, striving for self-governance amidst the chaos. The Kurdish-led administration, known as the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, has established a semi-autonomous region. This area, often referred to as Rojava, has become a beacon of hope and resilience. The people in this region have faced numerous challenges, including threats from ISIS and other militant groups. Despite these dangers, they have managed to create a relatively stable and inclusive society. Their efforts have not only been about survival, but also about building a new social contract based on principles of democracy, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. The Kurdish forces, known as the YPG and YPJ, have played a crucial role in defending this region. Their bravery and determination have been instrumental in protecting their homeland and securing a future for their people. It's a testament to the power of community and the human spirit's resilience in the face of adversity. However, the journey is far from over. The region still faces significant political and military pressures from various actors, both within and outside Syria. The struggle for autonomy and recognition continues, with the people of Rojava remaining steadfast in their pursuit of a better future. As we look at the northern regions of Syria, we see not just a story of conflict, but also one of hope, resilience, and the enduring quest for self-determination. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can shine brightly. As the conflict raged on, a significant turning point emerged. The balance of power began to shift, altering the course of the war. Rebel forces, primarily led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham (HTS), launched a swift offensive from their stronghold in Idlib, northwestern Syria. The rebels quickly captured major cities with minimal resistance. The Assad regime, once seemingly unassailable, began to crumble under the immense pressure. Lack of allied support, Russia and Iran, previously key supporters of Assad, were distracted by their own challenges and effectively abandoned him. The regime's collapse was both sudden and inevitable, leaving a power vacuum that plunged the country into further chaos. The fall of Assad marked the end of the family's 54-year rule and effectively concluded the 13-year Syrian Civil War. This sudden collapse of one of the Middle East's most entrenched regimes has significantly altered the region's geopolitical landscape. The human cost of the war was staggering. Millions were displaced and countless lives were lost. The scars of the conflict ran deep, affecting every aspect of Syrian society. Rebuilding the nation will pose immense challenges, from restoring basic infrastructure to fostering a sense of unity among a fractured populace. Despite the devastation, there were glimmers of hope. There appears to be a potential path to peace and reconciliation in Syria following the fall of the Assad regime, though significant challenges remain. The removal of Assad, a major obstacle to progress, has created a window for political transition. A blueprint for transition already exists in the 2012 Geneva Communiqué and UN Security Council Resolution 2254. Rebel groups including Hayat Tahrir al-Sham (HTS) are making efforts to reassure local populations and reach out to minority groups. While the situation remains fluid, there is cautious optimism that this moment could lead to a new era of peace and reconciliation for Syria. However, success will depend on inclusive political arrangements, international support, and addressing the grievances of all Syrian factions to prevent a relapse into conflict. Stay informed about the latest updates, global reactions, and the road ahead for Syria. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to spread awareness.